want to begin today with reading from Exodus chapter 20. And some of you know, or you will know as soon as you turn there, that it is the Ten Commandments. I want to read for us 8 through 11 of chapter 20 of Exodus. God says, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and made it holy. Today is the Sabbath. We all know that. And even without having read this passage, all of us know, especially those of us who've grown up in the church, that Sabbath is extremely important. But not only is it important for the church, but from this passage that we read together, it's important in God's heart. God decided to give the Israelites 10 commandments. 10, just 10. You would have thought if God said, I'm going to go away, and when I come back, I'm going to give you a list of those things that are most important in my heart. We would have thought he would have come back with at least 10,000. Lord knows we need him. But he just comes back with 10. And he says, these are my laws. And one of it is for us to keep the Sabbath. For you and me to keep the Sabbath. So you know it's got to be important. I don't know how many of you know, but in the United States, this used to be the law of the land. There used to be what is called blue laws. Or sometimes they call it Sunday laws. It started in the colonial times in Virginia. They passed a law that said, because God said Sabbath day is to be kept holy, they passed a law. The government of Virginia, colony of Virginia, passed a law that said every single citizen of the colony of Virginia must go to church on Sundays. Imagine that. Yeah? Imagine everybody getting up on Sunday mornings, getting themselves ready, and I'm sure they put on their Sunday best, maybe clothing, shoes that they would only wear on Sundays, and everybody puts it on. Everybody getting out of the house and getting into their carriages or whatever the case was, and everybody's heading to church. Imagine what that must have been like. It started there, and even today, throughout the last couple hundred years, there's been variety of these laws, blue laws. And even today, 13 states still have blue laws where car dealerships, I don't know why they pick on car dealerships, but car dealerships cannot open, department stores, retail outlets, malls. Imagine not being able to go to the mall on Sundays. Walmart. These things are still not allowed to open on Sundays. And behind all of that was this biblical principle that the Sabbath, one day, at least one day out of the whole week, Sabbath is supposed to be set apart. It is to be honored. It is to be made holy for his sake. In other words, biblical principle is we are not supposed to be distracted by going shopping or working or doing other kind of things, going places and doing things that would distract us from focusing on God. And that is what Sabbath is supposed to be. And obviously, the Israelites took that and they expounded on it, and they came with all kinds of other traditions, what we call oral tradition. I think it's called a Mishnah, which is a list of all these oral traditions, and they have some strange things too. They have a list of things that people are not supposed to do on the Sabbath, like you can't plow, you can't dig, you can't build, you can't do so many things. You can't sew, you can't write letters, except I think they have some limitation. You could write one letter, but you cannot write more than one. I think even stitching, you could stitch one, but you cannot stitch more than one. They even have rules like laws like if a building falls down on the Sabbath, you could dig around minimally just to see if there are any survivors, but you can't do any more than that. Last year, with Return of the King Conference, we went to Israel, and some of the traditions are pretty strange. When you go to a hotel, there's a separate Sabbath elevator, which stops on every floor automatically, so that these Orthodox Jews need not push the button, because in their minds that's forbidden. On the Sabbath, you cannot push even a button to get on the elevator or to stop the elevator and to get out of the elevator. As much as we believe those things to be ridiculous, the underlying principle is something that you and I could to learn and live with, and that is to honor God. Today, we are here to honor God, to focus upon Him and not upon all the other things. In other words, in God's mind and in the minds of these Israelites, they deliberately set out to proclaim and to establish that there was something sacred about this day. Something sacred. In our lives, is there any time during the week where it is sacred, even for 1 minute? Sacred in the holy sense. I don't mean sacred in playing video games or whatever else we do. Is there even a minute or few minutes during the week where we say, wow, this is a sacred time, and I want to be completely set apart. I want to be completely holy that I may honor God? Probably not. But biblically speaking, and from God's heart, this is it right here. In this group, in this time, in this place, for this purpose, all of us are here because God has said, this, my friends, this, my children, is a sacred time. Sacred time for Him and for Him alone. You know, the Wright brothers, does anybody know what year they invented the airplane? I don't know. But I read a story that they refused to have the first flight on a Sunday because it was Sabbath. They waited for the next day. And people around them had forecast that the optimal weather for their first flight would have been on Sunday. And that if they waited to the next day, or even a few days later, the weather was going to be more difficult for them, but they refused the first flight on the Sabbath. And they waited for the next day, even though it was not the optimal opportunity for them. Why? Because they believed and exercised their belief that the Sabbath day was sacred and that God should be honored and Him alone. How many of you know someone's favorite movie? James knows. And who does she love to talk about? Eric Little. She loves talking about Eric Little. Why? Because even though he was on the world stage at the Olympics as the favorite to win the 100-meter dash, he refused to run, even though he had spent so many hours and days and months preparing for that particular race and that particular moment. He refused to run on the Sabbath because he wanted to honor God. He gave up all that glory for himself, gave up the opportunity to win a gold medal because it was the Sabbath. Because he said loud and clear that the Sabbath, no matter what other things, what other opportunities are presented to me, the Sabbath is sacred. Therefore, I will not run. I will only focus and honor God. Is that why we're here today? Because you got up this morning and said, I want to honor God. Because God said, this is my day. This is my sacred day. And I want all my children to honor me. All these Sundays, Sunday after Sunday, we've come for the purpose, presumably, to worship God and to honor him. But have we really come because this is sacred opportunity? Because this is set apart as sacred for his purposes? Or do we come because we want something out of it? Or do we come because we feel obligated to come? It's my duty to come. But there has to be something more than that. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 12. Let's read verses 1 through 8. Matthew chapter 12, verses 1 through 8. Let's begin. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry and began to pick some heads of grain and eat them. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath." He answered, "Haven't you read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God, and he and his companions ate the consecrated bread, which was not lawful for them to do, but only for the priests. Or haven't you read in the law that the priests on Sabbath duty in the temple desecrated the Sabbath and yet are innocent? I tell you that something greater than the temple is here. If you had known what these words mean, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the innocent. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." And that's really the point. That Jesus says, I am the Lord of the Sabbath. What does that mean? It means that it's all about him. It's about his purposes. It's about honoring him. It's about meditating him. It's about talking about him. It's about thinking about him. It's his way, his plan, his purposes. It's just got to be about him. What does it mean when somebody says that a particular person has money lording over him? That money is the lord over his or her life. What does that mean? It means that person is focused more than on anything else on making money and making as much as he or she can. What does it mean when a person's studies lord over him or her? It means that's the most important thing. That student spends more time, energy, effort, priority on studying than even over God sometimes. It means to prioritize whatever it is lording over you. And many times, whatever is lording over you, whether it's money or study or relationship or entertainment or whatever the case may be, we allow these things more often than you would like to admit, that these things take priority even over God, even over reading our Bible, studying, taking time to pray, to have fellowship with Him, to have fellowship with fellow brothers and sisters of faith. We allow these things that lord over us to take priority, and these things are constantly on our minds. We desire these things. We focus upon these things at the exclusion of things of God. And so Jesus says, I am the Lord over Sabbath. I'm more important than anything else. What I want from you is more important than what you are bringing to the Sabbath day. This is His day. Every single one of us here would acknowledge that Sabbath is His day, and it's more important than anything else. It's more important than my needs, my desire, my interests. He should have priority over all of these things, whatever those things are. Whatever you have planned for this afternoon, or whatever you have planned for tomorrow or next week or for the summer, whatever the case may be. This is Him. This is His day. This is His Sabbath. It's for His purposes. It's for honoring Him. It's for exalting Him. It's about meditating upon Him. It's about focusing on Him, that our time, effort, all of these things are supposed to be focused upon Him, holding it sacred, because God said it is sacred. Not just giving Him garbage time. You know what garbage time is? It's a phrase that we often use in athletics. These days, there's NBA basketball playoffs going on. It's when one team, towards the end of the game, is so far ahead of the other team that we assume that they're going to win. So the coach takes out his star players to give them rest, and he puts in second or substitute players who usually don't play much. In these garbage time, because the result is certain, the coach would put in these bench players to come in and play the rest of the game, because it's inconsequential to the end of the game, and we call that the garbage time. And unfortunately, most of us, if not all of us, too often give God no more than garbage time. No more than what's left over. No more than what we are willing if it's comfortable for us. In the ministry, I think that's my biggest struggle, and that is I can't get some of these people to get out of this garbage time. Coming to church only when it's comfortable and convenient. Reading the Bible only when they feel like it. Coming to pray only when they have extra time. That's very frustrating for me. And I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for God. That even though God clearly said, this is the Sabbath, set it apart, it is holy, we still treat it like it's garbage time. It's got to stop. And I hope it stops with us. Amen? Let's pray.